Tom had always loved hiking. Every weekend he would pack his backpack, lace up his sturdy boots, and head into the hills and forest near his town. There was something about being surrounded by nature that made him feel calm and alive at the same time. The scent of fresh pine, the rustle of leaves under his feet, and the songs of birds high in the trees gave him a sense of peace he could never find anywhere else. Hiking was not just a hobby for Tom. It was a way to feel connected to the world. One bright morning, Tom woke up early, even before the sun had fully risen. The sky was painted with soft shades of pink and orange. He brewed a cup of strong coffee, packed some sandwiches, water, a flashlight, and his notebook, and set off toward the Pine Ridge Forest. This forest was large and had many trails, some well-known and others less traveled. Tom enjoyed exploring paths that few people visited because he liked the feeling of discovering something new. As he walked through the familiar parts of the forest, the sunlight streamed through the tall pine trees, making patterns on the soft forest floor. The air was crisp and cool. Tom breathed deeply, enjoying the feeling of freedom. He noticed squirrels darting from tree to tree and birds building nests. Everything seemed peaceful, almost like the forest was welcoming him. After a while, Tom decided to take a different path. He spotted a narrow trail partially hidden by tall grass and bushes. The path looked like it had not been used for many years. Something about it caught his attention, and curiosity pushed him to follow it. He carefully stepped through the overgrown bushes, brushing aside branches as he moved forward. The further he went, the quieter the forest became. The usual sounds of animals faded, and he felt a strange calmness. The trail led him uphill to a rocky slope. Tom noticed that the rocks were covered with moss and small ferns grew in the cracks. The climb was not easy, but he enjoyed the challenge. Each step made him feel closer to something mysterious. Finally, he reached the top of the slope, and there it was, a sight that made him stop in his tracks. Before him stood a large stone wall with a wooden door built into it. The door was old and covered in moss. Its wooden surface was weathered and rough, and the metal handle had rusted over time. Tom could see strange carvings etched into the wood. The symbols twisted and curved in ways he could not understand. His heart began to race. A door in the middle of the forest seemed impossible. Why would anyone build a door here in such a remote and hidden place? He stepped closer and touched the door. The wood felt unusually cold. There was a faint vibration, almost as if the door had a pulse. Tom quickly pulled his hand back. He looked around, half expecting someone to appear, but the forest remained quiet and empty. The sight of the door filled him with both fear and excitement. It was the kind of mystery that made him want to explore, even though a small voice in his mind warned him to be careful. Tom took out his notebook and began sketching the door. He tried to copy the carvings as best as he could. Each symbol seemed alive in a strange way. While he drew, he felt a subtle breeze brush against his face, even though the air around him was still. He could not explain it, but it made the moment feel even more unusual. He examined the door carefully, trying to understand if it led somewhere. There was no visible keyhole, only a handle and the strange carvings. Tom pressed his ear against the wood, and for a moment he thought he heard a soft whisper. He stepped back and listened again. The forest remained silent. Perhaps it was just his imagination, but the feeling of being watched remained. Tom realized he could not open the door alone. It was sealed tightly, as if it had been closed for many years. He felt a strange sense of importance, as though this door was waiting for him for a reason he could not yet understand. His curiosity grew stronger. He wanted to return with tools and more preparation. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Tom decided to head back home. The forest now seemed different. Every tree and rock appeared more alive. Even the sounds of birds seemed sharper and more clear. He could not stop thinking about the door. It had a mysterious energy that stayed with him even as he walked back down the slope. At home, Tom researched old maps and records about the forest. He could not find any mention of a door or cave in that area. It was as if the place had been erased from history. This only made him more determined to investigate. He planned to return soon with a flashlight, ropes, and his camera to document the discovery. The mystery of the door filled his mind day and night. That evening, Tom could hardly sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he imagined the door and the strange carvings. Sometimes he thought he saw faint glowing light behind it in his mind. The whispers he thought he had heard on the slope seemed to echo in his thoughts. Tom felt a mixture of fear, excitement, and wonder. He understood that whatever lay behind the door could change his life in ways he could not yet imagine. He kept thinking about the possibilities. Maybe it was a hidden cave. Maybe it was something left by someone who lived centuries ago. The more he imagined, the more the idea of the unknown called to him. He realized that this adventure was unlike any hike he had ever taken. This was not just about exploring nature. It was about uncovering a secret that had been hidden for years. Tom made a plan. He would return to the door the next morning. He packed a small backpack with essentials: a flashlight, water, a notebook, a camera, and a rope. He also brought a small first aid kit just in case. He wanted to be prepared. As he lay down to sleep that night, he felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. The door would be waiting for him in the forest, silent and mysterious, ready to reveal its secrets. Tom dreamed of the forest and the door. In his dream, the carvings on the wood seemed to move, forming patterns that whispered stories he could not understand. He woke up with his heart racing and a sense of purpose. This journey was more than a hike. It was an invitation to discover something extraordinary. Early the next morning, Tom set out again. The forest welcomed him with the same calm and beauty as before. The sun rose, painting the trees in golden light. He followed the path to the slope, feeling both excitement and nervousness. As he approached the top, he saw the door once more. It was exactly as he remembered, standing silently among the moss-covered stones. The carvings seemed to glow slightly in the morning light, as if acknowledging his return. Tom took a deep breath. He knew that whatever lay behind that door would change him. He could not see it yet, but he felt it in his bones. The adventure that awaited him was beyond anything he had ever imagined. With careful steps, he approached the door again, ready to begin the journey that would take him into the unknown. Tom stood in front of the ancient wooden door once more. The morning sunlight filtered through the tall pine trees, making small patches of light dance across the moss-covered stone. He could hear the faint rustle of leaves in the wind, but otherwise the forest was quiet. Every time he looked at the door, he felt a mix of curiosity and caution. He remembered the faint whisper he thought he heard the day before, and his heart beat faster as he wondered if the door held secrets that no one had discovered for years. He carefully touched the rough wooden surface. The carvings felt smooth under his fingertips in some places and jagged in others. He traced the twisting patterns slowly, as if trying to understand their meaning. The symbols seemed mysterious but not frightening. Tom felt as if the carvings were calling him, urging him to look closer and learn what was hidden behind the door. Tom took out his flashlight and inspected the metal hinges. They were old, heavy, and covered in rust, but still strong. The handle was firmly attached, and there was no visible keyhole. He tried gently pushing the door, but it did not move. A cold draft escaped through the small cracks, brushing against his face. The wind seemed to carry a faint, almost musical sound. It was soft, like a voice singing from far away. Tom froze. He listened carefully, but the forest remained silent. The sound felt real, yet it was impossible to tell where it came from. Feeling both nervous and excited, Tom decided to step back and take notes in his notebook. He sketched the carvings again, noticing details he had not seen before. Some shapes looked like twisting vines, while others resembled small animals or strange symbols he could not identify. He wrote down his thoughts, describing the strange energy he felt near the door. He could not explain it, but something about this place made him feel alive in a way he had never experienced before. After a while, Tom knew he needed to prepare more before trying to open the door. He returned home and spent hours researching the forest, the area's history, and any legends connected to hidden caves. He found old maps that marked the forest but saw no indication of a structure or cave where he had found the door. Tom also searched online forums and library records, but there was no mention of anyone discovering a similar place. The mystery grew stronger. The door seemed to exist in a place that was forgotten by time. That night, Tom could hardly sleep. He kept thinking about the door and the strange sound he thought he heard. He imagined what could be behind it. Perhaps it was a hidden cave untouched for centuries. Perhaps someone had used it long ago to store something important. Every thought filled him with excitement and a small sense of fear. He understood that the door was not ordinary. It was special, and it had chosen him to discover it. The next morning, Tom packed his backpack carefully. He brought a flashlight, a rope, extra batteries, water, a small first aid kit, and his notebook. He also carried a camera to document everything. He wanted to be ready for anything. As he walked through the forest, his mind raced with possibilities. What if the door opened to a place no one had seen for hundreds of years? What if it contained something that could change how he saw the world? When Tom reached the stone wall, he stopped and took a deep breath. The door looked the same, yet it felt different. The morning light made the carving stand out more clearly. He pressed his hand against the wood again and felt the slight vibration under his fingers. The draft from the cracks was colder now, and the faint musical sound seemed stronger. Tom's curiosity overcame his fear. He had come prepared, and he was determined to find out the truth. Using the flashlight to see better, Tom examined the door closely. He noticed that some parts of the carvings looked like tiny handles. Gently, he pressed them, thinking they might be part of a mechanism. Nothing happened. He studied the hinges and realized that they could be loosened with careful effort. Tom tied one end of his rope to a strong tree behind him and attached the other end to the handle. He wanted to make sure that if the door moved suddenly, he would stay safe. With careful, steady pressure, Tom pushed against the door. At first, it did not move. Then, with a loud creak, it slowly swung inward. The sound echoed through the forest, making birds flutter from the trees. Tom stepped back and watched as a narrow opening appeared. A cold, musty air came out of the door, mixed with the earthy smell of stone and moss. He could not see far into the darkness, but he felt a strong pull, a sense that the cave inside was waiting for him. Tom turned on his flashlight and stepped inside carefully. The ground was uneven and the walls were damp. The air was cooler than outside, and the light from the entrance faded quickly behind him. He could see the walls covered with more carvings similar to the ones on the door. They twisted and curled along the stone, creating patterns that were beautiful and mysterious. Tom's heart raced with excitement. He had discovered something no one else seemed to know about. As he walked deeper into the cave, Tom noticed small cracks in the stone floor that glowed faintly. It was a soft light, almost like tiny stars embedded in the rock. He bent down to examine them and realized they were small crystals reflecting his flashlight. The cave felt alive, not with danger but with energy and history. Tom felt a strange sense of calm, as if he was entering a place meant for learning and discovery rather than fear. He continued exploring slowly. The walls seemed to guide him forward, leading him to a narrow passage that opened into a larger chamber. The chamber was spacious, with a high ceiling and walls covered in crystals that glimmered in the light. Tom could not believe his eyes. The glow of the crystals was soft but bright enough to see the room clearly. Some crystals were tiny, like pebbles, while others were larger, shaped like flowers or geometric patterns. The place felt magical, almost sacred. In the center of the chamber, Tom noticed a pedestal made of stone. On it lay a small chest covered in dust and cobwebs. It was old, perhaps hundreds of years, and clearly untouched. Tom felt a shiver of excitement. The chest seemed important, as if it held something that belonged to the cave itself. He approached it carefully, brushing away the dust. The carvings on the chest were similar to those on the walls and the door, creating a connection between all the parts of the cave. Tom knelt down and studied the chest. It had no visible lock, only a lid that fit tightly. He lifted it slowly, careful not to disturb the contents too quickly. Inside, he saw hundreds of small crystals, each glowing softly like the ones on the walls. They pulsed gently as if they had their own rhythm. Tom reached out and touched one, feeling warmth and energy flow through his fingers. He realized these were not ordinary crystals. They seemed to carry something special, something alive in a way he could not explain. Tom spent hours in the cave, examining the crystals and the carvings. Each one seemed to tell a story, though he could not understand the words. He could feel emotions and memories, as if the crystals contained echoes of the past. The cave was more than a hidden place. It was a library of experiences, knowledge, and life itself. Tom's mind raced with wonder. He understood that he had found something truly extraordinary, a secret hidden for centuries waiting for someone to discover it. When Tom finally left the cave, he felt different. The forest outside seemed brighter, more alive and full of meaning. He carried one small crystal with him in a safe pouch, as a reminder of the discovery. Every step he took back home was filled with excitement, curiosity, and a sense of purpose. He knew he would return, but he also knew he had uncovered something that would change the way he saw the world. The next morning, Tom woke up with the memory of the cave fresh in his mind. The glowing crystals, the carvings on the walls, and the faint whispering feeling of life in the cave stayed with him. He had thought about it all night. He knew he had to go back. There was something in that cave that called to him, something that he could not yet fully understand, but it was powerful enough to pull him out of sleep and into action. Tom packed carefully, making sure he had everything he might need. His flashlight, extra batteries, a rope, a notebook, water, and snacks were in his backpack. He also brought a small pouch for the crystals he had collected. He checked the map once more to make sure he remembered the trail and set out toward the forest. The morning air was cool and the sunlight was soft, filtering through the pine trees. Tom walked with a mix of excitement and caution, knowing that today's adventure might change his life forever. When he reached the stone wall and the ancient wooden door, Tom stopped for a moment. The carvings on the door seemed brighter in the morning light, almost as if they were welcoming him. He ran his fingers along the twisted shapes, feeling the cold and smooth wood beneath his hand. The air from the cracks was cool and steady, carrying a faint hint of the earth and moss from inside the cave. Tom took a deep breath and reminded himself to be careful. The cave was a mystery and he had to respect it. Tom pushed gently against the door. The rusted hinges creaked, echoing softly into the forest. Slowly, the door swung open, revealing the dark interior. A cold, musty air came out, carrying the smell of earth and stone. The entrance was narrow, but beyond it the cave expanded into shadows and mystery. Tom switched on his flashlight and stepped inside carefully. The light from outside faded quickly, leaving him surrounded by darkness. The walls of the cave were covered in the same twisting carvings he had seen before. They moved in patterns that were almost hypnotic, guiding his eyes along the stone as he walked. The faint glow from the crystals on the walls reflected his flashlight, creating small points of light that danced across the chamber. The cave felt alive, not with danger but with energy. Tom could sense that it held something important, something ancient, and he moved forward slowly, paying attention to every detail. As he walked deeper, the ground became uneven. Small rocks and roots pushed up from the floor, and the air grew cooler. Tom noticed tiny streams of water dripping from the ceiling, creating small puddles on the floor. The sound of dripping water echoed softly, mixing with the quiet hum of energy that seemed to flow from the crystals. He felt as if the cave itself was breathing, and each step he took brought him closer to the heart of the mystery. At the far end of the cave, Tom found a narrow passageway that opened into a larger chamber. The walls of this chamber were lined with crystals that glowed faintly, illuminating the space with soft colors. Some crystals were small, like pebbles, while others were larger, shaped like flowers or geometric patterns. Their glow pulsed gently, as if they had their own rhythm, independent of the flashlight he carried. The chamber felt sacred and full of history. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal made of smooth stone. On it lay a chest, small but significant, covered in dust and cobwebs. Tom's heart raced. The chest seemed to be the focus of the chamber, as if all the carvings and crystals led toward it. He approached slowly, brushing away the dust carefully. The chest's surface was covered with more carvings, similar to those on the walls and the door, forming a connection between every part of the cave. Tom knelt down in front of the chest. It had no visible lock, but the lid fit tightly. He lifted it slowly, taking care not to disturb the contents too abruptly. Inside, he saw hundreds of tiny crystals, each glowing softly. They pulsed with light, brightening and dimming in a gentle rhythm. Tom reached out and touched one, feeling a subtle warmth spread through his fingers. The energy was calming, but also filled him with curiosity. These crystals were not ordinary. They held something alive, something powerful, something that seemed to carry the memories of the cave itself. Tom spent hours in the chamber, exploring every corner. He examined each crystal, studying its patterns and the way it reflected light. The carvings on the walls seemed to tell stories he could not yet understand. Each twist and turn of the shapes carried meaning, though he could not read it. As he touched the crystals and traced the carvings with his fingers, he felt faint whispers in his mind. They were not voices in the ordinary sense, but impressions, feelings, and memories. He felt the history of the cave flowing through him, sharing knowledge from long ago. He walked slowly through the chamber, holding one of the small crystals in his hand. The glow of the crystal matched the faint pulsing of light along the walls, creating a connection that was hard to describe. Tom could see patterns forming in the crystal that resembled forests, rivers, and mountains. He realized the cave was showing him visions of the world, both past and present. The experience was mesmerizing. He felt a sense of understanding about the natural world and the lives of those who had lived long before him. Tom sat down on a flat rock, holding the crystal and closing his eyes. The chamber seemed to breathe around him, and he felt a deep sense of peace. The whispers of the cave became clearer, though they were still not words. He sensed that the cave wanted him to learn, to notice, and to understand. The energy of the crystals was gentle, guiding him rather than frightening him. He felt connected to something larger than himself, something that had existed long before humans walked the earth. Hours passed without him noticing. The sunlight outside shifted as the day went on, but inside the cave time seemed to slow. Tom continued to explore, moving from crystal to crystal. He noticed differences in their shapes, colors, and the intensity of their glow. Some felt like they carried memories of water flowing, others like the songs of birds, and some like the wind brushing against trees. Each crystal seemed to have a unique story, and he felt privileged to witness them. Eventually, Tom realized he needed to leave, at least for the day. He carefully placed the crystals back in the chest, making sure none were disturbed. He took one small crystal with him, wrapping it gently in cloth as a reminder of what he had discovered. As he stepped out of the cave and closed the wooden door behind him, the forest felt different. Every tree, leaf, and stone seemed alive in a way he had not noticed before. The experience had changed him, opening his mind to the hidden wonders of the world. Tom walked back through the forest, holding the small crystal tightly in his hand. He could feel a faint warmth from it pulsing gently. He smiled to himself, knowing that he had discovered something extraordinary. The cave had shown him a world full of beauty, mystery, and knowledge. He realized that his journey had only just begun. The door was no longer just a hidden place in the forest. It was a gateway to something much greater, something that would continue to teach him for the rest of his life. By the time Tom returned home, the sun was setting, painting the sky in warm oranges and pinks. He placed the crystal on a small shelf near his desk and looked at it carefully. The glow was faint, but it reminded him of the chamber, the carvings, and the gentle whispers of the cave. He knew he would return soon, prepared to explore deeper. The discovery had changed him, awakening a sense of wonder and understanding he had never known before. Tom spent the night thinking about the cave. He imagined the hidden chambers, the glowing crystals, and the stories carried by the carvings. He realized that the cave was not just a place. It was a teacher. It had taught him patience, observation, and the importance of respecting nature. He knew that what he had discovered would remain with him forever, guiding him through his future hikes, discoveries, and the quiet moments of reflection in life. Tom woke up the next morning with the memory of the cave fresh in his mind. The glowing crystals, the twisting carvings, and the gentle rhythm of energy he had felt inside stayed with him. Even during the night, he had dreamed of the cave. Just his dream. The carvings moved like flowing water, and the crystals seemed to sing with a soft, calming hum. He knew that he needed to return. The cave was more than a hidden place. It was alive with knowledge and energy that he had only begun to understand. He packed his backpack carefully, taking his flashlight, extra batteries, water, notebook, and snacks. Most importantly, he carefully carried the small crystal he had taken before. The crystal pulsed softly in his hand, as if it recognized that he was returning. Tom felt a mixture of excitement and anticipation. This time, he wanted to spend more time inside the cave, exploring every corner and learning as much as he could from it. When he reached the forest, the morning air was crisp and refreshing. Sunlight filtered through the tall pine trees, casting long shadows along the path. Tom felt a sense of peace and connection as he walked. The forest seemed more alive than before, almost as if it had recognized his presence. Birds sang softly, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. Every step brought him closer to the stone wall and the wooden door, and he felt a nervous excitement building inside him. Tom approached the door with care. The carvings seemed to glow, slightly in the morning light, almost as if they were welcoming him back. He placed his hand on the wood and felt the familiar cold vibration. The air from the cracks was cool and steady, carrying the earthy scent of moss and stone. Taking a deep breath, he pushed the door open carefully. The hinges creaked, and the sound echoed softly through the forest. A cold draft brushed against his face as he stepped inside, and he felt the familiar sense of mystery and wonder. Inside, The cave was even more mesmerizing than before. The crystals along the walls glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with the small crystal in his hand. The carvings twisted and curved along the stone, creating patterns that seemed to guide him forward. Tom walked slowly, paying attention to every detail. The air felt alive, as if the cave itself was breathing around him. Each step he took made him feel more connected to the place, and he felt a growing sense of understanding and respect. As he moved deeper into the cave, Tom noticed that the crystals seemed to respond to his presence. They pulsed brighter as he approached and dimmed when he stepped away. He realized that the cave was not just a place, it was aware. The energy from the crystals flowed into him, filling him with calmness, curiosity, and a strange sense of wisdom. He felt his mind opening, able to notice details and patterns that he had never seen before. The cave was teaching him, in a way that was gentle but powerful. Tom reached the central chamber and knelt by the pedestal where the chest lay. He opened it carefully and saw the hundreds of glowing crystals inside. He picked up a few, holding them in his hands and observing their soft light. Each crystal seemed to carry a different sensation. Some felt like flowing water, some like sunlight on leaves, and some like the wind brushing across the mountains. The crystals were not just beautiful, they were alive with experiences. Sitting quietly in the chamber, Tom began to notice subtle sounds and movements in the cave. The crystal's glow shifted and the carvings on the walls seemed to rearrange slightly, creating new patterns. He realized that the cave was showing him something deeper than the physical world. It was a place where history, nature, and life were connected. The cave was revealing lessons about patience, observation, and the beauty of the natural world. Tom spent hours exploring the chamber, moving from crystal to crystal. He touched the carvings on the walls, tracing their patterns with his fingers. Each movement seemed to unlock new sensations, new feelings of calm and understanding. The whispers he thought he had heard before returned, but now they were clear in his mind. They were not words, but impressions and images. Forests, rivers, animals, mountains, and the rhythm of life itself. He felt as though he could sense the memories of the world, the passage of time, and the quiet harmony that existed in nature. As the day went on, Tom realized he was changing. He felt calmer, more patient, and more aware of the small details around him. The cave was teaching him how to observe, how to understand, and how to appreciate the world in a way he had never known before. He understood that this transformation was not magical in the ordinary sense. It was a lesson in perception, awareness, and connection. The cave was showing him how to see beyond the surface of things and understand the deeper patterns of life. Tom held one of the crystals in his hand and closed his eyes. He felt the rhythm of the pulse in the crystal sync with his own heartbeat. The soft glow of the other crystals in the chamber surrounded him, and he sensed a profound calm. The cave was giving him insight into the world, into nature, and into the simple yet powerful truths of life. He realized that this experience would stay with him forever, guiding his thoughts, actions, and understanding of the world. He explored every corner of the chamber, noticing small details that he had missed before. Tiny streams of water flowed from the walls, creating soft ripples on the stone floor. Small cracks in the walls glowed faintly, showing hidden patterns that were easy to overlook. Every part of the cave seemed to carry meaning, and Tom felt grateful for the chance to witness it. The cave had become a teacher, a guide, and a source of insight that went beyond anything he had known. As the afternoon sunlight began to fade outside, Tom knew it was time to leave. He carefully placed the crystals back in the chest, making sure none of them were disturbed. He took the small crystal he had carried with him and wrapped it carefully in cloth, keeping it as a reminder of the lessons he had learned. Walking toward the cave entrance, he felt a sense of completion and understanding. The cave had given him more than knowledge. It had transformed the way he saw the world. When Tom stepped outside, the forest felt alive in a new way. The sunlight, the trees, the leaves, and the small creatures around him seemed full of meaning. He realized that he could no longer see the world as he had before. The cave had changed him, opening his mind to the hidden patterns, beauty, and energy of life. Every step he took felt deliberate, aware, and full of appreciation for the world around him. Tom walked back toward his home with a sense of peace and excitement. He understood that the cave was not just a hidden place in the forest. It was a teacher that would continue to guide him for the rest of his life. He felt a deep connection to nature, to the patterns of life, and to the quiet wisdom that the cave had shared. Every moment in the forest, every detail he noticed, felt more important and meaningful than before. That night, Tom placed the small crystal on his desk and looked at it carefully. Its soft glow reminded him of the chamber, the carvings, and the lessons he had learned. He understood that the true discovery was not the cave itself, but the transformation it had brought inside him. He felt patient, aware, and connected to the world in a way he had never known. The cave had awakened something deep within him, something that would continue to grow as he explored, observed, and lived his life. Tom knew he would return to the cave again, not just to explore the physical space, but to continue learning. The cave had shown him that some mysteries were not about fear or danger, but about understanding, patience, and connection. He felt grateful for the experience and eager to continue his journey of discovery. He had learned that the world held hidden lessons for those who were willing to notice, observe, and respect the beauty and wisdom around them. As he lay down to sleep that night, Tom felt a quiet satisfaction. He had discovered something extraordinary, and it had changed him forever. The cave had opened a door not just in the forest, but within himself. He understood that he was no longer the same person who had first discovered the wooden door. He was more aware, more patient, and more connected to the world. The transformation was complete, and it was a gift that would stay with him forever. After his transformative experience in the cave, Tom returned home with a sense of calm and purpose that he had never known before. The small crystal he had taken from the cave rested gently on his desk, glowing softly in the evening light. Every time he looked at it, he remembered the chamber, the glowing crystals, and the mysterious carvings on the walls. The cave had shown him a world full of hidden patterns, quiet beauty, and lessons waiting to be discovered. It had changed the way he saw everything around him, and he knew that life would never be the same. Over the next few weeks, Tom continued his daily routines, but he noticed subtle differences in how he experienced the world. Walking through the town, he observed small details that others might overlook. He noticed the way sunlight reflected on windows, the rhythm of footsteps on the pavement, and the colors of leaves that moved gently in the wind. He found joy in small moments and learned to appreciate the simple beauty of life. Everything felt richer and more meaningful. Tom also continued to hike in the forest near Pine Ridge. Each time he returned to the woods, he felt a sense of gratitude and connection. The trails seemed to welcome him. The birds seemed to sing for him, and the trees appeared to bend slightly as if to guide his way. He carried the lessons from the cave with him, paying attention to the small signs of life and the quiet patterns that existed everywhere. The forest was no longer just a place to explore. It had become a teacher, a friend, and a companion. One day, as he walked along a familiar trail, Tom found a patch of sunlight that filtered through the trees in a way he had never noticed before. The light fell on a small stream, creating sparkling patterns on the water. Tom knelt beside the stream, letting the cool water flow over his hands. He felt a deep sense of peace and understanding. He realized that the cave had taught him not only about nature, but also about himself. He had learned patience, observation, and the importance of being present in every moment. Tom also spent time writing in his notebook, documenting his experiences and the lessons he had learned. He described the carvings, the crystals, and the patterns he had noticed in the cave. He wrote about how the cave had helped him see connections between the world around him, how nature, energy, and life were intertwined. Writing became a way for him to reflect and deepen his understanding. Each word he wrote reminded him of the cave and the wisdom it had shared. Even in his daily life at home, Tom noticed changes. He was more patient with others and more aware of their emotions and needs. He listened carefully when people spoke, noticing the subtle changes in their voices and expressions. He found that he could understand people better, not because of magic, but because he had learned to observe, pay attention, and respect the world around him. The lessons from the cave extended beyond the forest into every aspect of his life. Tom never spoke to anyone about the cave. He felt that some experiences were too personal to share. The cave had chosen him, and he understood that it was not meant for everyone. He also realized that speaking too much about it might take away from the mystery and beauty of what he had discovered. The cave had given him knowledge, perspective, and transformation, and he wanted to honor it by keeping it sacred in his heart. Over time, Tom found that he no longer needed to carry the small crystal to feel the energy and lessons of the cave. The transformation had become part of him. When he walked in the forest, he could feel the same rhythm, the same calm energy, and the same sense of connection that he had felt inside the cave. The lessons had been absorbed into his mind, his heart, and his soul. He understood that the cave had changed him forever, and the gift of that change would guide him for the rest of his life. One evening, as the sun set over the forest, Tom walked along the ridge where he had first discovered the door. The sky was painted in soft shades of pink, orange, and gold. He paused to watch the light dance across the trees and valleys. For a moment, he closed his eyes and breathed deeply. He could feel the presence of the cave, the rhythm of the crystals, and the quiet energy that had touched him. He smiled, knowing that the discovery had been more than an adventure. It had been a transformation, a way of seeing the world that would stay with him forever. Tom continued to hike regularly, always paying attention to the details of the forest, the mountains, and the streams. He noticed the patterns of birds in flight, the movement of clouds across the sky, and the way shadows shifted with the sunlight. Everything held meaning, and he appreciated it deeply. Each hike became an opportunity to connect with the world, to observe, and to reflect. The forest had become a place of learning, not just exploration. Even on days when he did not hike, Tom carried the lessons of the cave with him. He found joy in ordinary moments, such as the sound of rain tapping on the window, the gentle sway of trees in the wind, or the quiet footsteps of people passing by. Life had become more vibrant, more meaningful, and more connected. He understood that the true magic of the cave was not in the crystals themselves, but in the awareness, respect, and understanding it had awakened in him. Tom also began to notice the subtle ways in which nature influenced life. He observed how the seasons changed, how animals behaved, and how the weather shaped the land. He realized that everything in the world was connected, from the smallest insect to the tallest tree, and from the flowing rivers to the distant mountains. The cave had shown him these connections, teaching him that awareness and observation were the keys to understanding the world. Years passed, and Tom continued to hike, explore, and learn. The memory of the cave remained strong, and he occasionally returned to the hidden trail, not to take crystals or uncover secrets, but to honor the place that had changed him. Each visit reminded him of the lessons, the beauty, and the quiet wisdom of the cave. He had grown into a person who could see the hidden patterns in life, who could find wonder in the ordinary, and who could appreciate the mysteries that existed all around him. Tom knew that the cave had been a turning point in his life. Before discovering it, he had been a hiker, curious and adventurous but unaware of the deeper rhythms of life. After experiencing the cave, he had become someone who could see, understand, and appreciate the hidden beauty and patterns in the world. The cave had given him a gift that was beyond words, a way to live with awareness, respect, and wonder. Even as he grew older, Tom carried the lessons with him. He shared the wisdom of observation, patience, and connection with those he met, not by revealing the cave itself, but by encouraging people to notice the world around them. He taught that nature held lessons for anyone willing to pay attention, and that quiet observation could lead to understanding and inner peace. Tom's life had become richer, fuller, and more meaningful because of what he had discovered in the hidden cave. At the end of each day, Tom would often return to the ridge where he had first seen the door. He watched the sunset, breathed in the fresh air, and reflected on the journey that had begun with a simple hike. He realized that the cave had not just been a place to explore, but a mirror of life itself, showing him that curiosity, observation, and respect could transform the way one experienced the world. Tom smiled, holding the small crystal in his hand one last time. Its soft glow reminded him of the chamber, the carvings, and the lessons he had learned. He knew that he would never forget the cave, and that its influence would stay with him forever. He had been changed not by danger or fear, but by wonder, discovery, and understanding. The cave had given him a gift that no one could take away, a new way of seeing, feeling, and living. And so Tom continued his life, a hiker, a learner, and a witness to the hidden beauty of the world. He carried the cave in his heart, and every step he took, every moment he noticed, every breath he breathed was filled with the awareness, peace, and wonder that the cave had shared with him. He had discovered not only a hidden place in the forest, but a new life within himself, forever changed, forever aware, and forever grateful for the quiet wisdom of the cave.